13 years I've waited for this chance. I won't be dying today. Come to me, Ifrit!
Final Fantasy is a franchise I hold really near and dear to my heart. I play FF14 in my personal time a good bit, and FF7 is one of my favorite games of all time. I was introduced to the franchise by Kingdom Hearts 2, and I played it all the time on my dad's PlayStation, so I was very pumped to check out Final Fantasy 16. However, by the time I finished the game, I found myself disappointed overall. I was dazzled by spectacle, but left wanting in substance. Overall, the game started strong, but the wow factor wasn't enough to carry my excitement to the finale. After the credits rolled, I felt a sense of disappointment, and was hoping for a deep sense of cathartic satisfaction I had found in other entries in the franchise. Now moving forward, I will be discussing spoilers at a time, and I will also be discussing spoilers from Persona 5, as I will be making comparisons between the game's two final acts. So yeah, if you don't want spoilers for FF16 or for Persona 5, I highly recommend clicking off at this point, having heard what I said so far. Final Fantasy is a franchise known for epic, larger-than-life stories mixed with god-slaying battles of mythological proportions. They are both elevated by weaving the two together with emotional threads that grip the player to their core. Unfortunately, I feel that while FF16 certainly understands the latter, the former falls short by the end of the story, leaving me with mixed feelings on my experience with the game. This is without even beginning to mention some of my issues with the mechanics and RPG systems, which overall felt underwhelming. I felt incredibly compelled by the first two-thirds of what it had going on, and the plot had a lot going for it. Leaning into a Game of Thrones mixed with mythological titans that obliterate mountains was a great premise and had me gripped right at the start. However, the pacing and direction of the final third of the story was something that I was sadly less than pleased with. A common theme of JRPGs is a cast of heroes rising up against a false god, killing them and freeing mankind from their clutches. This isn't a storyline I have anything against innately. Persona 5 is one of my favorite games of all time, and it uses this theming quite heavy-handedly, and I have no issue with it there, and quite enjoy it, actually. The battle against Yaldabaoth and the Archangels is an incredible final act. I think it's an apt comparison, too, to how the ending against Ultima plays out in Final Fantasy XVI. FF16's attempt to do a pivot away from its more grounded story felt more disappointing than exciting. Its ideas are quite stereotypical for the genre, and the plot points felt half-baked. It was disappointing because I thought the themes of oppression, rising against one's birth, leading a life on one's own terms, are all adamantly present enough within the first portion of the tale, and that it didn't need to take this pivot and present a deity-like figure in order to have a proper climax to that tale. I mention Persona 5 as I believe it handles its final villain very well, as its main theme is exposing corruption and rising against oppression, from a bullying high school teacher to a corrupt politician, and its final escalation to freeing mankind from a false god they have chosen to worship. It takes its time slowly cementing the foundations of its grandiose climax. However, FF14's focus is more grounded, as I have said before, than Persona 5 ever was, and focuses more on emotional character moments far more than it attempts to perform world building. So attempting to transition away from that grounded human experience to an existential statement on agnostic values and ideals isn't innately bad, but does not have enough time to flourish in the way it needs to in order to be satisfying. I found the characters put forth very compelling, especially Clive, and I enjoyed the villainous entries like Benedicta, and was surprised and impressed by the more subtle ones like Dion. And the way the story played out felt me leaving like such good characters and performances were wasted on a plot that wasn't truly interested in them. It feels like the final act of a different game was put at the end, and in turn, I felt confused and disappointed. This disappointment was only exasperated by the poor pacing of side quests. I actually really enjoyed the side quests at the start, but the larger the gaps got between main story beats, and the more and more side quests got added, I found less and less compelled to go check them out. A lot of what I find troubling about FF16, and where I think its true faults lie, is in its lack of commitment. Its inability to decide if it wants to be an RPG or an action game, if it wants to be subtle or grandiose, or dramatic or grounded. By doing this, it leaves a good chunk of what it ends up doing feeling stale, and I find that really disappointing. I genuinely adore the game's visual presentation. The boss fights are some of the best I've ever played in a video game, and I genuinely mean that. The character designs are epic, the music swells incredibly well with these grandiose moments, and it's easily my favorite part of the game. So it's a shame that I felt myself underwhelmed by the fact that I was playing the fights for spectacle alone, and was not able to enjoy their relevance in the story. I found myself more excited to rewatch cool moments on YouTube than I ever did to want to sit back down with the game and replay them for myself. FF16 wants to be an action game. It looks, feels, and sounds like one, and yet I find it lost in half-baked RPG systems I just couldn't care less about. It feels like Yoshi P and his team wanted to move it in an action game direction, and Square Enix wouldn't let them fully commit, which ends up stretching out the story and its major beats and action sequences with mediocre side quests and convoluted plot points that are just there to stretch it into a feasible game to fit as an RPG instead of making it a crisp 15 to 20 hour experience like something like Devil May Cry 5. There is a phenomenal, top 10, sensational experience somewhere within FF16, but due to its many layers of fluff and filler, I find myself sifting and sitting through an experience that I wish I could just edit down to an abridged version. This game is good, but it could have been great. And while I do think that for a hardcore Final Fantasy fan like myself, it's definitely worth checking out, I can't see myself coming back to it like I would other entries in the series. Which is a shame, because I truly believe this game contains some incredible moments. I give FF16 a 6 to a 6.5 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching, and if you'd like to see more reviews like this, click the links in the description or at the end of the video, and check me out on my other pages and channels. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!